Okay, hello everybody. Good afternoon, evening, night, and even morning, because we've got a global audience. I'm in London, and I'm in the UK like Sylvia and Greg, and it's actually after midnight now. So hello to everybody. My name's Yvette, and I run a consultancy called More Curricula. And the ethos behind the consultancy is all about teaching children how to learn. I'm actually a teacher, but I stopped teaching a couple of years ago, but I first started teaching back in 1997. Now, my presentation is going to be about the art of note taking, and this builds on the whole ethos of learning to learn. So today we're going to talk about four things. Is there an art to note taking? What's the research saying about it? And we can look at two strategies. So hopefully I will stick within the 5 minutes, or I might go a minute over. So the big question is there an art to note research saying that taking notes by hand is good, and others saying taking notes using a laptop is good? So we've actually got a bit of disagreement. Now, the main research that you will see is by somebody called, or people called Muller and Oppenheimer, and that was done in 2014, and they worked with university students. And what they found is the university students that took notes by hand opposed to those who took it by laptop, they did better when they gave them an assessment to do. So what they found is that they got a higher score and they had a better understanding of concepts. Now, the problem is all the research that we've got now doesn't support these findings. So in fact, some of the experiments done by Muller and Oppenheimer found that the students who took their notes by hand, although they did well with recall, they didn't do as well when they were recalling facts. And they also found that rereading notes helped students who took their notes by hand because they did better when they were tested factually, both conceptually. Now, there's other research out there, and the other research has found that students who take notes using a laptop do better when they answer factual questions. And there's also even more research, which is more recent, that has found that when tests are done with school children, that who take their notes by hand, but they actually do well conceptually, but not recalling facts. So it's really, really confusing what we have. So let's try and agree what the research is saying. The general consensus is, if you take notes by hand, there's a better understanding of concepts and visual information. And the reason being, and I'm going to pinch a really good explanation, which I found on a YouTube channel by Thomas Franks. Now, when a student is typing and they're using a laptop to take notes, their main concern is to try and copy what the teacher or lecturer is saying. So they're trying to copy word for word as quickly as they can. And what that means is they can't take in the meaning and the syntax. So the syntax are the letters and sounds that a word makes. So they can't do both. So what happens is they focus on the syntax. So they are focusing on the letters, sounds, the letters and the sounds that the word makes rather than the meaning. Now, on the other hand, when you're taking notes by hand, there's a totally different process. And because you cannot write as fast as someone who's typing, you have to decide what you're going to write down. So you then decide what you're going to write down, and you think about summarizing, paraphrasing, so it makes sense to you. So in my opinion, if you are taking notes using a laptop, there's a greater opportunity for you to acquire factual information opposed to conceptual information. And if you're taking notes by hand, there's a greater opportunity for you to acquire notes that gives you conceptual knowledge. That's just my opinion. Okay, other elements that researchers agree on between learning and note-taking is if you have opportunities to reread your notes, that can help with learning. Distractions are a no-no for both taking notes by hand or laptop. But I would say that if you are taking notes using a laptop, there are more opportunities for you to be distracted because there's a temptation to browse the internet, check your email, etc. And another thing is the note-taking strategy that you use. So that can help in terms of learning. So I'm going to show you two strategies which you can use with children of any age that work. And the research out there shows that it works. So the first one, which some of you are already familiar with, is the Cornell note-taking system. And your page is divided into 3 areas. So the first area is the main note-taking area. And during a lesson or a lecture, you would record the main points of that lesson or lecture. After the lesson had finished, you then would move to the left of your screen, and we've got a column called the Q column. And what you would do is record questions or prompts about the notes that you've taken. So the questions would be helping you consolidate knowledge to gain understanding, and also to connect learning with prior learning. So it's this sort of relationship and connecting learning. Once that's done, you would complete the summaries section, and that's 1 or 2 sentences that summarizes the main argument of the lesson. Now, the great thing about this is, not only does it help organize your notes, which helps with this conceptual understanding, it also brings a bit of retrieval practice in. So the Q column, the questions where you're checking what you know, and you're not, you're just testing yourself in an informal environment, that's retrieval practice. Now the second, the second strategy is visual note taking. And that's when you have a graphic or an image with some text when you take your notes. So examples are mind maps, concept maps, etc. And the reason why this is very effective is because it supports dual coding. And I think, sorry, someone's trying to come in, let me get the person in. Okay, so I think most people are aware of what dual coding is, because it's one of the buzzwords that we've had for the last couple of years in teaching. But what it is your brain, when it encodes or takes information in, it can do it in 2 ways. It can do it verbally, so anything that we're listening to, and visually, so anything that we see. So if you are taking notes visually, where you've got diagrams and text, it enables your brain to take information in twice. Now, the great thing about the information you're taking in, they're both independent, but once they go and they're encoded in your brain, they're connected. And that's why I've got the associative connection. Now, the great thing about this is not only are you taking information in twice, you've also got more chance of remembering it. So when you're trying to retrieve it or recall it or take it out of your memory, if you can't remember what you heard, then your brain will try and remember what it saw. So it's a great way to support learning. So references on my slide, these are the references I referred to with the research, and I hope you found it interesting, and thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. That was definitely very interesting.